There are certain shows that are remembered ultimately maybe for one match or one defining moment. And WrestleMania 18 definitely fits into that category of being defined by one match and ultimately really only being remembered for one match, which is kind of a shame because there was more than one match to this show. But when I go back and I watch WrestleMania 18, it's a reminder of a lot of things that disappointed me with the business, well, pretty much at that time, the business that was the WWF. I mean, first off, you look at WrestleMania 18. To me, this should have been the culmination of a well mapped out, well thought out, well planned invasion angle from WCW and maybe ECW, but primarily WCW. This should have been it. WrestleMania 17 should have kind of been the starting point, the launching point. And then you go an entire year, and this is where you have the big blow off, the big culmination of everything. But we didn't get that. Of course, by the time Survivor Series 2001 had come around, you had a little more than 5 months of the invasion angle, which was a bunch of drizzling bullshit. And the WWF said, that's enough of this crap. We've proven our point. We've had our fun. Fuck the fans. And fuck them all. And it's a shame and it's disappointing because that's one of those things that always sticks in my craw and sticks in my memory banks about WrestleMania 18. If I had to define this show by anything, it's what could have been, it's what should have been, and ultimately what wasn't. Now, in terms of the matches on this show and the card structure and everything else, there was some fun stuff on this card. There were actually a couple of matches that were pretty good on this card. But at the end of the day, I remember it more for some of the stupid things and more for the disappointment and the more for what they did do as opposed to what I felt they could have done or more importantly maybe should have done. So let's take a look at this card here. You open up with Regal in an IC title match for the second year in a row at WrestleMania. This time he faces RVD. Short match. RVD wins his first ever Intercontinental Championship. Hooray! Just so that way later on down the road he could be buried as part of the Wrath of God in 2002 and 2003 on Raw. Next up, DDP successfully defends his European Championship against Christian. Remember when they had DDP being the stalker of Undertaker's wife? And my God, by the time we got to WrestleMania 18, it's me! It's DDP! And, oh, shit. Bad. Bad. Only redeeming quality, I think, to this match was Christian's temper tantrum after losing this match. And that was even at a time where I didn't think it was time to break up Edge and Christian. I think they could have kept them together a little bit longer. But lo and behold, they did it because at that point in time, frankly, from the WWF standpoint, they had no more competition. They could pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. So now was the chance for them to try a bunch of bullshit. Some of it worked, and a lot of it didn't. And to me at this time, breaking up Edge off on his own, I don't think that ever particularly worked well, at least in the initial stages, even though I'm sure some of you will disagree with me. And Christian, he had his redeeming qualities, but I mean, he couldn't even beat DDP here for the European Championship. I'm just saying. I wonder if it was around this time if the blue dot idea came up, or if that was ultimately something that went farther down the road from the WWE. One of the things that was fun about this show was everything surrounding the Hardcore Championship. It originally was Maven and Goldust, and that ended up being a no contest. And then you had all throughout the night, you had all these different title changes. I missed the 24/7 Hardcore rules, and I love that gimmick, and I love that concept. This was a belt that was the fourth tier belt on the show. You might as well do something different with it. You might as well have some fun with it. And that's exactly what they did. And this was a lot of fun. It goes from Crash Holly to what the fucking Hurricane to Molly Holly when she hit him in the head with a frying pan. Molly Holly's running, whack into the door, the top of the door, and it's Christian. And then Maven ends up pinning him and fucking leaves in a cab with the Hardcore title. That was a lot of fun, and it played out well throughout the course of the night. Kurt Angle defeats Kane in an okay match, but nothing really spectacular or special, and nothing that you'll ever truly remember. Similar to Edge defeating Booker T. Again, a singles match that was kind of short, and nothing to really remember about it, frankly. And that's just the way it is. It's funny when you look at the tag team championship matches at WrestleMania the couple of years before this. That triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 2000 that was awesome. And then that TLC match, that triple threat in 2001 at WrestleMania 17, that was even better. two iconic tag team matches in WrestleMania history. And now you get to WrestleMania 18, and you've got a four corners elimination match with the APA, Billy and Chuck, the Dudleys, and the Hardys, and it just wasn't the same. That's not to say that this match was terrible, but ultimately, when you look at what you had gotten from the tag team division the previous two WrestleManias, you can't help but view this as a very big letdown and a very big disappointment. And that's exactly the way I go back and look at it. One match that I think sometimes doesn't get the due that it deserves because it was really damn good was The Undertaker taking on Ric Flair in the No Holds Barred match. I'm not a fan of American Badass Taker, of Heel Taker during this time, but I cannot lie, the sight of him beating the shit out of David Flair always cracks me up. And they did a really good job of making this beef, this issue between Undertaker and Flair, seem very personal. And, this was an important match for Flair and his return to the WWF. Because, yeah, he had his battle with Vince at the Royal Rumble, and that match was what it was. But here, he's taking on Taker, one of the established top guys at the biggest show of the year. And, it was, when Flair talks about it, was something that got him to start being a little full of himself and starting to remember maybe that he was the Nature Boy. There's something to that because you could definitely see it here, that he was starting to figure himself out more. But what he was doing, I think, was he was actually doing something other than working at Ric Flair's tempo and Ric Flair's pace and Ric Flair's type of match. And that's why this match came across so well. Really good match. Not one of the 10 greatest WrestleMania matches, maybe not even in the top 15 or top 20, but a really, really good WrestleMania match. Again, the type of match that if you had a WrestleMania 30, it would be one of the best matches on the card, probably no question about it. You had a triple threat women's championship match where I always thought that Trish should have went over here. I mean, you're in Canada, you're in Toronto. Here's Trish, the Canadian girl with the big tits, the blonde hair, the juicy, thick thighs and ass that the guys wanted to do and Lillian wanted to eat. So, of course, Jazz walks in the champion and she walks out the champion, but it was an okay women's championship match. But again, nothing you're really going to necessarily remember or anything like that. But it was what it was. When I look at this card, there are certain things that just really disappoint me about it and really just frankly remind me of how much the WWF and Vince McMahon were just really, stuck on wanting to do whatever the fuck they wanted to do because they had bought themselves and afforded themselves the luxury to be able to do whatever the fuck they wanted to do. For example, you bring in the NWO, the New World Order, Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. Three of the big stars, the biggest stars, mind you, the three maybe perhaps biggest key, most important figures that help WCW kick the WWF's ass in the ratings every Monday night for 80 plus consecutive damn weeks. And now here you bring in the NWO after the entire invasion angle is fucking over. You're sending, again, I emphasize this, you're sending a AA roster to face Murderer's Row of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig in the 1927 fucking New York Yankees. People are going to get pissed off at that. We've been waiting for how many years to get WWF versus WCW, and this is the type shit they give us. I don't give a shit about the Turner contracts and all this crap. I've talked about that before. The bottom line is this was fucking stupid. So you bring in the NWO at No Way Out, and that's kind of cool. And then you just had to know that Vince was going to teach lessons, that Vince was going to do things his way, and Vince was going to remind everybody just how superior the WWF and Vince McMahon truly were. If he didn't get that lesson from the fucking garbage-ass invasion angle, you sure the fuck got that lesson served up to you on a silver platter here at WrestleMania 18. Basically, you have Steve Austin, Stone Cold himself. Now he's face, and people are kind of like, He's kind of over as a face, but he's clearly been supplanted, as the top face in the company by The Rock, and there's no question or argument about that in here in 2002. He basically beats Scott Hall and Kevin Nash pretty much in what amounts to end up being a 2-on-1 handicap match. This is fucking stupid. This was dumb on so many different levels. This is a lot of interesting elements of story heading into it. The feud was interesting. But then you get this match. You bring in the fucking NWO. You basically have it almost like a 2-on-1 handicap match. But of course, beer drinking, stone cold stunning, stone cold Steve Austin's gotta fucking go over here because Vince McMahon has to teach Hall and Nash a lesson. He has to sit there and remind them who the king is. He has to remind them that they still have a price to pay and they still have to eat some shit and like the taste of it because they left several years before. This is fucking garbage. This is fucking trash. And part of the reason it was such trash is because when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, one of the dream matchups that we'll never get is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan at a WrestleMania. If there would have ever been a fucking time to do it, it would have been WrestleMania 18 here, especially as the culmination of an invasion angle. Just imagine that. The main event of WrestleMania 18, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Holy shit. You want to talk about epic. You want to talk about all-time great matchups and all-time iconic moments. That's it right there. But instead we get Austin versus Hall with throwing Nash in, and Austin basically beats two members of the fucking NWO. Like I said, this was stupid and this was trash, and we never ultimately ended up getting Austin versus Hogan like we damn should have. It's just dumb. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Oh, and then the genius concept and idea of, well, it's Triple H. He won the Rumble. You know, by God, he's coming back from a quad injury because so many people truly actually care about this. He's banging the boss's daughter. So as a result, he's got that title shot at Mania. By God, we're going to force it down your throats as the main event, even though it had no fucking business being the main event. How stupid sometimes Vince McMahon and the WWE have been over the years when it comes to the actual structuring of their card and their clear failure to understand, see WrestleMania 25, that, oh my God, this guy versus this guy probably is going to steal the show. Oh, you can look at WrestleMania 24 too with Flair and Michaels. This match is probably going to steal the show. This match is the most intriguing matchup heading into it. This match is probably going to get the crowd the most emotionally invested. This match is probably the most likely out of any match on the card to be unable to be fouled. So as a result, if it can't be fouled, then you put the fucking match on last. But nope, because it's Triple H, and because it's Triple H wrestling for the title, and we want to force God down your fucking throats, because he's banging the boss's daughter, and we know Rock's going to start going away. We know Austin's being phased out. We got to start with Triple H and the fucking pounding and the terror of reign of God. Ugh. We got to make this match main event. And think about this. One of the most forgettable, and it's a shame too because it was actually a good match if you watch it, just from a match standpoint. But easily one of the most forgettable WrestleMania main events in history. Funny thing is that Triple H was involved in another one of those at WrestleMania 25. Imagine that. Another instance where you've got, holy shit, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels for the first time at WrestleMania. The guy who's undefeated at WrestleMania versus Mr. WrestleMania. So let's put that in the middle of the fucking card because more people care about Randy Orton versus Triple H for the damn title, right? Get the fuck out of town. How stupid. This was stupid. This whole match is stupid. And let's not forget that at one point in time, Triple H lost his title shot to freaking Kurt Angle. Just so many levels of fucking dumb here. So many levels of dumb. But one truly redeeming quality of the show ultimately has to be the match that didn't main event, that should have main evented, and that is Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. No bullshit, no interference, no extreme stipulations, nothing like that. Just legend versus legend. Icon versus icon. Tyson versus Ali. A Babe Ruth versus a Willie Mays. A Michael Jordan versus a Kobe Bryant. A Wilt Chamberlain versus a Shaquille O'Neal. A Jack Nicklaus versus a Tiger Woods. Whatever fucking sport you want to talk about. A Pele versus whoever the fuck else is good in soccer. This is one of these matches. These are one of these iconic moments. And you just knew something was up heading into this pay-per-view, that this was the main event. Where they're talking about Triple H and Chris Jericho ending the show. It's funny, isn't it? When they were trying to sell this fucking pay-per-view and they were trying to fill the damn Sky Dome and they were trying to sell the damn pay-per-views and the merchandise and all of this other crap, what was the featured match? It's Hogan versus The Rock. Why? Because deep down inside, the WWE had to know, WWF at the time still had to know, that by God, this is going to be the match of the night. By God, this is going to be the thing that everybody's going to talk about. And it's incredible to me People could sit there and say, well, this match is kind of overrated in the grand scheme of things. It's only memorable because of how involved the crowd got. Well, dipshits, that's the fucking point. Isn't that the fucking point? Is to work the crowd into a fucking frenzy and have them involved in the entire damn match. And that's exactly what they did here. And of course, most of the WWF brain trust was probably erroneously assuming at the time, and I knew this heading into WrestleMania 18 with the friends that I watched it with before I watched it with them on the show. I said, Hogan's going to be the face, Rock's going to be turned heel, and this match, if it doesn't main event, it's going to be a damn shame because this is the only thing that people 10 years from now are going to be talking about on this fucking pay-per-view. And what'd you know? Hashtag Schleich Daddy was right again. Just imagine that. No, this wasn't the best scientific match. No, these guys didn't do a bunch of fucking flips. No, there were a couple of botches in here and all that, and it doesn't fucking matter. You take The Rock, who was the number one babyface in the company at this time, not even a question. By 2002, he's the man, the unquestioned man. And here comes Hulk Hogan to all these past years of accomplishments, now kind of with his tail between his legs, coming from a failed WCW, and he becomes the hero, just like that. Rock becomes the villain, just like that. And you could understand and see the true greatness for all the bullshit that anybody ever wants to say about my man Hulk Hogan, and a lot of it, frankly, true. Hear that again. Let me emphasize that. Rewind it. For all the shit that people ever want to say about a Hulk Hogan, and a lot of it true. Got that? The one thing you cannot deny is that when it comes to being able to work a crowd and be able to get a crowd to do what you want them to do and to be able to own a crowd, nobody, and I emphasize again, nobody ever did it better than Hulk Hogan. And I'll stand by that. And you want to know why I say that? Again, look at WrestleMania 18 and look at this match. He took the fucking Rock and made him a heel, a villain, just like that. And again, even with this match, and as great as an iconic match as it was, you're bringing in Hogan. You need to validate Hogan, as stupid as that might sound. You bring in the NWO, and you proceed to basically have Hall and Nash pretty much job to Austin here at Mania, and then Hogan turns around and fucking jobs to The Rock. This is an example, yet again, of Vince McMahon trying to establish his superiority and his dominance and say, I'm the real man, you're not, you're playing in my backyard, and I can do whatever the fuck I want, doesn't matter whether it's bullshit or not. Well, they found out because Hogan coming back and then having to be turned babyface because they had no choice. Ask God what happened at Backlash. All the people that sit there and talk about God being the greatest politicker of all time. Eat shit. Hogan buries his ass. Ask Triple H what it was like at Backlash 2002 to play Hulk Hogan's game. Ugh, exactly. When I think about this show, I really ultimately only truly do think about one match, which is kind of a shame because there is more than one good thing on this show. But I think about that one match. And I think about how iconic and legendary it truly is, and how over a decade later, it's still the one thing that you always remember about the show no matter what. You always remember Hollywood Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18, and how timeless and how classic this match truly is. It's the perfect embodiment and example that you don't have to do a lot. You just make sure everything that you do matters. And that's exactly what you got in this match here. But at the end of the day, I think about this show too, and there's a lot of disappointment that creeps in. You had such a talented, deep roster at this time, and this is the best show you could give us. You had the NWO coming back, and the NWO jobs out here to Vince's two golden boys in Austin and The Rock. You sit there having to God good and well know, you would think that Hogan Rock is going to steal the show and nothing else is going to be able to follow it. So even though you've been promoting this show on the back of Hogan and The Rock, all the billboards on the buses, everything is fucking about the Hogan and Rock match. And you're going to have Triple H and Chris Jericho main event for a title match that nobody could give a shit about. I said, you think about this. This should have been the culmination. This should have been the end piece, the end game for a well thought out, well constructed, well mapped out and planned out invasion angle. Instead, the invasion angle was done almost 4 months before. It's fucking trash. It's ridiculous. When I think back about this show, it pretty much is about one iconic all-time great WrestleMania match and a bunch of disappointment and a lot of other garbage.